All right, I'm with Chris Paul, CEO of Hercules Metals, and seems like we got a lot to unpack today. You know, as soon as I pulled up to my computer around 8:30 a.m. this morning on the East Coast time, I was surprised to read the news from Hercules. So, from what I understand, it looks like Barrick, now Barrick Mining, not Barrick Gold, is optioning, or it's giving the option to Hercules to acquire all of its ground in the Idaho Porphyry Belt. So now Hercules has the option to go from 26,000 acres in Idaho to over 100,000. And it's a staged option deal, as most option deals are. So it's $2 million in stock up front. And then at year 1, year 2, year 3, there's 3 more $2 million increments of stock for $8 million in total. So Chris, how are you today and what's going on?
Oh, I'm doing great. So I can appreciate it's probably came as a bit of a surprise for most people and might be a little bit confusing right off the hop. So let's kind of break down what happened and how this strategic deal sort of came together. Okay, so starting with this, like Barrick spent roughly, I believe it was around $12 to $15 million in number one, helicopter staking, that image you see in figure 1, figure 2 of the news release. Helicopter staking mostly over the winter, right? Because you got to remember, this is a time when things were very competitive and they had to beat their main competitor, Rio Tinto, as well as some other juniors. So they didn't hesitate. They got the helicopters out, they got the armies out, and they staked this massive land package. Okay. They also had to spend a full year's claim maintenance as of September 1st, 2024. And then they executed approximately 12 months of exploration work on these claims. Okay, so there's a number of targets, porphyry targets, throughout this district that are also associated with these historical epithermal silver mines up and down the belt. Now, after 12 months of doing exploration with their Nevada team, which, for context, are Carlin Gold geologists, right? So Barrick has a lot of porphyry experience on their LATAM team, their Latin American team. And occasionally you'll get the odd LATAM porphyry expert flying up to sort of oversee some of the things that were going on. But ultimately, this is being explored, this is being looked at, this is being mapped by geologists that don't have porphyry copper background. And so after about a year, they've generated all these very, very interesting anomalies, right? So they reached a decision point. That decision point being, we go here, right? That's step number 2, because these are concealed porphyries, right? They're not sticking out of the ground. This isn't 50 years ago. It's easy. Can you hear that noise in the background, by the way? Going on the
Yeah,
back?
it's picking up a little bit on your headphones. Okay. And your speech got a little less audible just when that started.
Apologies if Renault's going on in the background here. I'm throwing the headphones on to try and drone it out, but I can appreciate it. I think it's pretty loud for you as well. But listen, they reached the decision point, and that decision was, do we continue on with another full year of exploration, real permitting on the U.S. Forest Service, and which of these targets do we actually select to do the real permitting on, right? Now, Barrick is a major mining company. They're not in the business of grassroots exploration. They're not in the business of drill permitting on U.S. Forest Service lands. However, their partner, which they're already invested in, Hercules Metals, is. Their partner does have porphyry copper experience specific to this belt, right? So a team has discovered concealed porphyry target. The team has put together subsequently a model of what these porphyries look like, including all three pulses of mineralization with a hypogene enrichment event, which is overprinted it. And they said, okay, well, do we want to kind of continue on with 100% of this thing and not really knowing what we're doing or where we're going, because we don't have the porphyry copper experience, we don't have, you know, the drill permit in this area? Or do we want to take a higher percentage and of Hercules and consolidate it all and essentially entrust Hercules as the vehicle to continue advancing our district scale strategy? And so that was the conversation that was had, right? The deal is all shares. So in other words, they're increasing their equity position in the company. Here, that $8 million represents roughly, less than 3/4 of their staking cost, claim maintenance and exploration costs. So we're reimbursing essentially part of that hard cost in stock in the company. And that's essentially how the deal came together. That's the rationale behind it. And quite frankly, it's incredibly exciting, because our understanding is there's about a dozen porphyry targets in what we call the Olympus belt.
So I'm going to give you the question that I know had some people sell some stock here this morning, and that question is, this sound like, why did Barrick go from aggressively staking over 100,000 acres and seeming like this was their district and they wanted to be in charge of it, to deciding, well, we're going to give it to the junior who we invested in? Why would they not want to be the operator now?
Well, I think it kind of covered that, right, in the last explanation, right, in the sense that they reached some point. Do they want to kind of continue to own 100% of something which they don't really have the means to explore? They don't have porphyry copper geos available to advance it. They don't know where to go with drill permit on the U.S. Forest Service. They want to increase their equity stake, right? We capped them at 19.9, but that's still a pretty substantial equity position, right? In a vehicle, in a partner company, who, if you consolidate everything under, is way more. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so I mean, I acknowledge that Hercules knows this district way better than anyone else. Okay, I'll agree with that. But is Hercules a big enough company to explore 100,000 acres? I mean, if we just think about the last couple of years, you've explored like 3,000 meters by 3,000 or so meters in over 2 years of work. So now suddenly you have this, it's monstrous, it's huge, right? How do you effectively explore such a large land package as a junior?
Yeah, absolutely. So look, to answer the first part of your question, right? Why not take on a land position? It just doesn't matter that you're a junior company. If you have a strategy and you have a focus on how you're going to do it, right? We didn't just enter into this agreement willy-nilly, right? Like, this has been planned for 6 weeks plus now of actually planning what the next phase of exploration is going to be, right? And actually, it feeds into something we talked about in our last press release. So essentially, there's 3 steps now, which is going to allow us to really, really focus in within that 100,000 acres on the target, right? So what is the target within that 100,000 acres? It's a red line, right? So some of your listeners may be familiar with something called the red line in British Columbia, the Golden Triangle of BC. And the red line essentially is a geological boundary in space. It's the separation between the Triassic, which hosts, in our case, the porphyry copper systems, which is concealed, largely concealed, and the overlying cover rocks we call the Jurassic, which host these younger silver, lead, zinc epithermal systems. Now, along that red line, along that boundary is a very special geological unit we call the red conglomerate. And the red conglomerate is about 10 meters thick. It's not very thick, right? And what it's doing essentially is, think of this as you have two layers of rock, right? So you've got the Triassic with all the porphyries. That's buried, that's hidden, that's concealed. And then on top of that, at surface, is the Jurassic, is the cover. Before that Jurassic cover was deposited, the Triassic rocks were at surface. And while those Triassic rocks were at surface 200 million years ago, there was river channels running along them all across it. And they were flowing west to east. And anywhere one of those rivers crossed over a mineralized, altered, veined porphyry system, they would pick up big boulders of that mineralized, veined, unaltered porphyry system. And so those river channels, if you look at them, all you have to do is look at what they contain, right? Look at what we call the class and the boulders within them. It'll tell you if that river ran over a porphyry, right? If it ran over a mineralized porphyry. Right? So after that happened, we deposited the Jurassic cover on top of that. So you've got this little special layer sort of wedged in between the cover and the target. And it's exposed. That special layer is exposed at surface, right? On and off for about 73 kilometers. And so what the team now do is we're sending out a team of mappers, geological mappers and prospectors. And their job is to map out that entire red conglomerate, specifically for presence or absence of mineralized porphyry material, right? Because right away, just from doing that one very, very easy, very, very simple, very basic step, you can effectively say, wow, at least here, 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 and here, this underneath this Jurassic cover, hidden underneath this Jurassic cover, is a porphyry copper system. And we know that because these clasts didn't fall from the sky; they came from the river, which eroded west from under the cover to east, where they're exposed to surface. And so that's right in itself an incredible trick, prospecting trick that has been realized here in the last couple months and has been applied successfully at Hercules. So we know it works, right? Proof of concept, it works, right? So now we're going to do this across 73 kilometers, and then we're going to get into phase 2 and phase 3 of our exploration plan.
Okay, yeah, and I want to talk a little bit about phase 2 and phase 3, but first, just one more concern I know shareholders are going to have is in your conversations with Barrick, they're a 12.8% shareholder. This agreement may get them up near 20% at some point in the future. In your conversations with them, are they long-term shareholders? Are they here for the long term to really, see this through?
I mean, I think maybe it's not obvious. It's, to me, it is. But why would they be taking shares in the company? Why would they be increasing their equity position and taking shares in the company over the next 3 years if they didn't plan on being a long-term shareholder, right?
Okay, fair enough.
I mean, look,
yeah.
sorry, just a second point to that. This was their baby, right? They think about the amount of work, the amount of effort that they put into putting this belt scale package together. They could have sold that to Rio Tinto. They could have sold it to a lot of suitors, but they didn't. They came to us and they gave us an incredible deal. Effectively less than hard costs. right? They could have marked it up 5x, 10x, and sold it to Rio, who would have, taken it without even thinking about it, right? Would have taken that deal, but they didn't do that, right? They gave it to us, and they gave it to us at a good deal because it's going to allow them to be long-term shareholders and slowly, effectively, increase that equity position over 3 years.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. So just from my perch since May, so it's almost August, about 3 months now. This has been quite a 3 months, Chris. A lot has transpired here. You've confirmed the 3D model. You did the new MT survey. Seems like you've confirmed that the Grade Creek zone has some special potential for more preservation of the hypogene, enrichment layer. Southern Flats is coming into focus in a whole new way. It's exciting. This is really, and now 100,000, over 100,000 acres. You're the player in the district. I mean, I think Hercules was always the player. You guys were the first one to find a porphyry here in this area of Idaho, but Barrick came in hot on your heels really powerfully, but now they're handing you the keys. So what does it feel like to be the CEO of this company during this transformation over the last few months?
I mean, yeah, I mean, you know how it feels, right? Like it's obviously, it's been a roller coaster ride over the last, call it 3-4 years as this thing's come together, including, 2 really big steps forward in 2022 with the silver, 2023 with the porphyry discovery. Look, 2024 was a step back, right, in terms of share price, but it should put a step forward in terms of the technical understanding and allowing us to put together the model. This year feels like, the real true step forward. And going into a deal like this can be very scary, right? Like, I'm not gonna lie, like taking on 100,000 acres, being on the whole belt, I think would scare the shit out of most people, right? Most junior CEOs, right? It's a big undertaking. So, the way I do it, and I said this right in my quote, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity, right? This is a once in a lifetime chance to consolidate everything. We have an opportunity now. I mean, it's crazy that this is even happening, that we even have the chance to be able to do this, right? But there's conviction, right? And what we're doing at Leviathan, and that conviction is what motivates you that this is the right decision. As scary as it can be, as high risk as it's got to be, you got to ignore fear and you got to use logic, right? You got to think long term. This is only going to come about once in your life, an opportunity like this. And let me remind you too, that hypogene enrichment event that's happening here, we've talked about this before. This is the same process that happened at Resolution Copper in Arizona, right, which created 1.8 billion tons of 2% copper. The only way you can upgrade a porphyry from 0.5% to 2% is through hypogene, right? So there's supergene enrichment at tons of these South American porphyries, and it's small and it's local and da. But to get a second pulse, right, this epithermal overprint is really rare. Now, what's the significance? And I talked about this in my quote too, right? Probably a lot of people didn't really pick up on this or appreciate this. But when I talk about the tectonic scale of this enrichment event, what does that mean? So what I'm referring to is the fact that this didn't just happen at Hercules, right? And if I sort of explain it from a technical perspective, the way it happened, it's only something that happens when, as these porphyries are being emplaced, at that current time, there's what's called rapid uplift and erosion, right? So the porphyry is emplaced 3 to 5 kilometers down, right? 3 to 5 kilometers below the surface, 200 million years ago. And as it's being emplaced, right, it's, all the rocks, the tectonics are smashing together, the plates are smashing together so fast and so hard that it's uplifting these mountain belts super, super quickly, and that rapid uplift causes erosion. So it's moving these things upward, literally kilometers in just a million-year time period. So while the system is still active and still forming, and then all that hydrothermal circulation, which deposits the metals, is still live, it's made its way upwards 3 kilometers. So in other words, it's made its way into its own epithermal zone. And that is when you get hypogene enrichment. When it gets uplifted, call it 3 kilometers in a million years, right? It makes it all the way to its own epithermal zone. It's that boost. Now, important that big brand is if we know there was rapid uplift and erosion in Hercules, this is something that operates on the scale of an entire volcanic island arc, right? So this would have been like present-day Philippines or Indonesia or one of these island arc countries, right? The entire belt, the entire island arc is being rapidly uplifted and eroded because these plates are smashing together so quickly. So what that means, the point of this whole story, is that every single porphyry in this belt has the same potential for hypogene enrichment. Right? It's not just a local phenomenon that occurred at one porphyry in the belt. It's something that would have had potential to actually occur in every single one of these porphyries in the belt. You have to move on that. You can't even think about it.
A rare and exceptional copper silver enrichment event, and it affected the entire region of Idaho, this entire belt. So there's probably, like you said in our last conversation, you think there's a dozen porphyries in this area of Idaho. So if we know 2 or 3 now, there's still 9 or 10 to still be uncovered over the coming years. So yeah, it is a really exceptional opportunity, and that was great to hear you explain, your thinking. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity. So it's a once in a lifetime opportunity. Looks like the contract will be approved by the exchange in the next week or so. What's next for Hercules? Do you actually send your guys out to some of these newly acquired areas and start to do some work there, or are you still laser focused on the core project area with the 5 rigs?
Yep. So we're bringing on obviously a team from Alpers, which is separate from the Leviathan team. The Leviathan team, of course, is just going to continue doing what they're doing and drilling. I spoke with Charles Ray yesterday. So he's on board. He's on board to bring, some of his team down. I spoke with Warren Pratt, who you remember you interviewed Warren. There's a YouTube video up there. Maybe you can link to that in the description. Warren's going to be coming out. Warren's system's going to be coming out. And of course, we've got Joanna Lipsky, who's just an incredible mapper, geological and porphyry expertise. So what we talked about earlier, mapping out that conglomerate, that's step number 1. But also, Barrick has generated targets, right? So not walk-up drill targets, because they would be drill permitting them now if they were, but targets that are absolutely interesting in many ways, and that's going to be coming out. Don't worry, we talk about all this stuff in coming releases here when the deal closes. But following up on that, and then MT. So we've just done this big 120 square kilometer MT survey of Hercules at not a bad cost, like a few $100,000. That was, I believe, I want to say it was 9 kilometers wide by 13 kilometers straight. Right. So you can basically you can increase the station spacing rather. And we're not going to necessarily cover that whole 100,000 acres. We're going to be focused. Step 1, cheap, low cost mapping, just targeting that one line, figure out where the interesting areas are, Focus step 2, focus the MT, right? On still a pretty large scale. Step 3, 3D IP, right? And the IP is going to give you that, no doubt about it, 3D model of disseminated sulfide mineralization. Once you got those together, right, in a number of areas, that's when the reconnaissance RC drill testing starts. Now, permitting. Barrick, one of their biggest motivators in this deal was the fear of the U.S. Forest Service. U.S. Forest Service has been a nightmare for a long, long, long time. In fact, ever since the Reagan administration, which I think was 78, they came up with the NEPA rules. Probably not explaining this perfectly right, but they signed this agency called CEQ, big federal agency to administer the rules. And then Trump comes along this year, I think in February this year, and says, guess what? That's over. This is not working, guys. Right? Taking however long it is to permit a mine in the US, taking years to get a simple exploration drilling permit, that does not work. And you talked about this. I watched the video. You talked about this, and it's in the big beautiful bill as well. So what is it now? I mean, I'll let you say it, right? Like, what is it now to get a drill permit? Use for the service lens.
4 to 6 weeks.
4 to 6 weeks. Right. So Barrick makes this decision 2-3 months ago, for July 3rd, when this all became effective, under the impression that it takes years to permit just a tiny, what's called a CADEX, what we're doing now. It's called a CADEX, categorical exclusion. It's 1 year of drilling. It's pre-selected drill sites. You're only allowed 1 mile of road building. No bueno if you're a Barrick mining firm. No bueno if your market cap is measured in tens of billions of dollars, right? That a little CADEX doesn't move the needle for you. So that was, I'd say, one of the largest drivers of the decision. If all we can do is wait 2 years to get a little CADEX permit, that's not even going to meet the scale of what we need to have as an exploration target. What are we doing, right? That's a job for a junior to spend years of doing, right? But guess what? That all changed. That all changed on July 3rd, and then when the big beautiful bill came out, and 4 to 6 weeks now to drill. So timing is good.
That's a real game changer. Absolute game changer. The Trump 2.0 is so supportive of hard rock mining in the U.S. We've never had a president. We've never had a new administration in Washington like this group. They're very supportive. They're really turning on the spigots for mining in the U.S., which is fantastic to see. While I have you here, I gotta ask, because I'm curious. The last time we spoke, you said that Scout had this really powerful new rig arrive, and you're going to get it ready to continue 2506. So just wanted an update on that.
Yep, new rig's arrived. New rig has arrived. I probably shouldn't say too much more, just in case it's material, right? But okay. The rig's there. Yeah, it's going. It's back.
And I mean, Chris, I think definitely there's probably some concern from the peanut gallery that why is Barrick doing this, right? And then there might be some more concern. Well, does Hercules have the finances to advance 100,000 acres? And they got 5, rigs going. So what are they doing for money? So what can you tell us about that?
Okay, so first off, the strategy for phase 1 is not a lot of money, right? We're talking in the hundreds of thousands of dollars for the mapping, and then phase 2, the geophysics, another few $100,000. So for well under $1 million, well under, we're going to basically generate the drill target, because we know the recipe here, right? That's the benefit that Hercules has of spending 3-4 years here now. We generate the drill targets. We then have a decision tree of our own. Do we want to maybe bring out a low-cost reconnaissance RC rig and poke a few holes into this thing? Because even if we don't hit barn burner on hole number 1, you hit porphyry alteration, porphyry veining, porphyry anything on a brand new target, concealed target, you're close, right? You're close to another big one. But ultimately, that decision point, right? So one of the reasons we put in the agreement, I said, look, I need the ability to accelerate this. I need the ability to pay this in cash. Because if someone very big, let's just say, so happens to want some action here, we're free to do whatever deals we want when there are claims. We own 100% of them, right? Barrick, because we weren't even reimbursing their full hard costs on this, they asked for a royalty. We negotiated, started at 2%, got them down to 1%, buying it all the way down to 0.25. It's trivial, right? So ultimately, right, we could execute on a deal 3 weeks, 4 weeks from now, which would fund the entire thing potentially, if we so chose, right? So the point being, let's go out there. We're not going to do that. Let's go out there and figure out what's there. There's a lot of really, really, really interesting targets we've seen here. So we want to have a really good look at this stuff. It's not going to cost us much money, right? It's hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's very, very doable. And let's evaluate just what's out there. Let's increase the value of Project Olympus. And maybe we piece some of it up. Maybe we don't. Maybe we piece all of it up. Maybe we don't. But either way, we got lots of options. And money's not going to be a problem.
It's interesting that they called it the Olympus property. That's just very interesting to me. I'm just thinking about that. So one of the sentences in the news release, the company has the right to accelerate the exercise of the option by making all of the option payments at any time. So that means basically if 2 months from now, you're like, we want 100% of this whole thing, you just give them the whole 8 million and it's yours.
Correct. You got to realize with these types of things, they might be a little confusing and what's going on here. There's always more to the picture than meets the eye.
All right. Well, I think we'll leave it there. Probably more to be revealed over the coming months, especially those drill results that everybody's really eager to see. Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Rob.